Let's get one thing straight. School was never meant to educate you. Religion was never meant to awaken you. They weren't created to set you free. They were designed to train obedience, to mold minds, to limit perception, to turn infinite beings into manageable citizens. And the scariest part? It worked. You didn't question why you sat in straight rows, why bells told you when to speak, move, eat, why asking why got you labeled a problem, why memorizing was rewarded, but questioning, punished. You just followed. You adapted. You learned to play the game. And when school ended, religion picked up where it left off. From the time you were a child, the system whispered, "Don't think too much. Just believe. Obey your teachers. Obey your priest. Obey your God." But here's what they didn't tell you. Obedience kills curiosity, and curiosity is the first spark of consciousness. The real role of school was never to make you wise. It was to make you predictable, to shape you into a worker, not a thinker, to prime you for factories, for taxes, for systems you never chose. And religion? It didn't ask you to find God. It told you where God lives, how he speaks, what he thinks, and what will happen if you disagree. Suddenly, eternity was behind paywalls. Salvation had a subscription model, and the soul, it belonged to an institution. Let's zoom out. You are born into a body that already knows, a field that senses, a soul that remembers. But instead of nurturing that, the system overwrites it. It fills your hard drive with scripts. Success equals conformity. Morality equals guilt. Truth equals what authority says it is. Questioning equals sin. Originality equals rebellion. So you shrink, you dim, you forget. And by the time you're old enough to wonder, who am I really? You're buried under 12 years of schooling and decades of dogma. Here's the truth they won't say out loud. The system wasn't built to fail you. It was built to shape you into a version of you that's too busy, too broke, too distracted to wake up. And when someone does wake up, they call them dangerous, a heretic, a dropout, a black sheep. But what if the black sheep are just the ones who still remember the sound of their own signal? What if those who refuse to follow are the ones we should be following? Let's stop pretending this was accidental. The system didn't evolve to what it is. It was designed. The school you went to, the subjects you studied, the rituals you followed in church, mosque, temple, all of it was built on a blueprint, not for expansion, but for containment. And here's how they did it. 1. The industrial school model. The modern education system wasn't designed by philosophers. It was designed by industrialists. Men like Horace Mann, John D. Rockefeller, and others looked at society and asked, how do we create better workers, more obedient citizens, people who won't rebel? So they built schools to look like factories, bell schedules, rows of desks, standardized testing, authority-based grading, memorization over imagination. Rockefeller even said it outright. I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. Let that sink in. You weren't taught to ask why. You were trained to raise your hand and wait for permission to speak. You weren't encouraged to dream. You were instructed to comply. 2. The religion reinforcement loop. And just when you thought you were free after school, Religion enters. It picks up where the classroom left off. But instead of teachers, you get preachers. Instead of textbooks, you get holy books. And instead of detention, you get eternal damnation. You're told, you're born in sin. God is watching your every move. Don't trust yourself. Trust us. Your natural instincts are labeled evil. Your desires, temptation, your doubts, blasphemy. This isn't enlightenment. It's psychological handcuffs. And over time, you internalize the message. I must obey to be loved. I must suffer to be worthy. 3. Repetition equals programming. Whether it's reciting the pledge in school or chanting prayers in religion, repetition is how you program a system. They didn't need you to understand. They needed you to repeat. Because repetition rewires neurons. It embeds belief. It installs obedience. That's why you memorized math formulas you never used, while never once learning how to regulate your nervous system, process trauma, or follow your intuition. That's why you recited sacred verses without ever being encouraged to question who wrote them and why. 4. Trauma as a tool. Here's the darkest part. The system uses fear, strategically. Fear of failure in school, fear of sin in religion, fear of punishment, rejection, hell. Why? Because fear hijacks the brain. It shuts down critical thinking. It bypasses logic. It creates obedience through survival response. And the worst part? We pass it on to the next generation. Not because we're evil, but because we were programmed to think it's right. This is how the cycle continues. Not with violence, with normalcy. What if the very system that claimed to educate you was designed to keep you from ever knowing who you truly are? What if the rules of religion were less about divinity and more about discipline? What happens when you tell a child, sit still, be quiet, follow the rules? Every single day, for years, they stop exploring, they stop expressing, and most dangerously, they stop trusting themselves. This is exactly what the system wanted, because to control a human, you don't need chains. You just need to turn their inner fire into shame. The soul was suppressed, not lost. You were born with intuition, with energy, with imagination, with emotion. But in school, imagination equals distraction, emotion equals weakness, questioning equals defiance, play equals inefficiency. They taught you that logic matters more than feeling, that facts matter more than truth, that success means pleasing authority. And slowly, but surely, the heart closed, the third eye dimmed, the field collapsed. You didn't lose your soul. You were taught to ignore it. The body became a prison. Sit for 8 hours. Don't move. Raise your hand for permission to pee. Ignore your hunger, your fatigue, your cycles, your instincts. And we wonder why adults now feel disconnected from their bodies. Anxious? Burnt out? Apathetic? This system didn't honor the body. It domesticated it. And religion? It took it further. You were taught, flesh equals sin, desire equals temptation, sensation equals shame, sex equals guilt. So your very aliveness became something to fear. But here's the truth. They don't want you to remember. Your body is divine technology. Your desires are signals. Your emotions are intelligence. Your instincts are ancestral data. The system didn't just chain your mind, it short-circuited your field. The mind became a loop: repetition, routine, authority, obedience. That's the loop. And once the mind's in a loop, it no longer creates. It repeats. It doesn't explore. It waits for direction. This is why most people don't trust their own intuition. They were never taught to. They were taught to defer to experts, scriptures, exams, external validation. And here's what that created: a population that can memorize, but not think, that can recite, but not question, that can perform, but not feel. Trauma, disguised as structure. Let's call it what it is. When you shame a child for feeling, when you punish them for curiosity, when you tell them their body is sinful, that's trauma. But when everyone's traumatized, it becomes normal, and the system survives not because it's strong, but because it convinces you that you're the problem. If what you're hearing doesn't just sound true, but feels like something deep inside you has always known it, you're not alone. You're remembering. Stay with this energy. Subscribe now, not for me, but to stay on frequency. You were born awake, fully alive, sensing energy, seeing light, vibrating pure. But then came the birth certificate, the name, the gender roles, the religion assigned, the national identity, the standardized path. Step by step, layer by layer, the system wrapped you in labels, not because you needed them, but because they did. Because if they could define you, they could control you. Birth into bureaucracy. The moment you're born, you're not seen as a soul. You're seen as a record, a citizen, a future taxpayer, a body in a system. They give you numbers, documents, doctrines. Before you even speak, your future is being shaped. You're told what to believe, who to obey, what success means, what gender means, what to fear, who your God is. By age 7, most of your core programming is complete. By 18, you're ready, not for freedom, but for the next system: work, debt, responsibility. The loop of compliance. School to work, work to stress, stress to weekend, weekend to numbing, numbing to consumption, consumption to debt, debt to fear, fear to silence, and repeat. What does this create? A society that works just hard enough not to question, that rests just little enough to stay exhausted, that dreams just big enough to buy, but not to build. This is not random. This is rhythm, programmed rhythm, just like a lullaby that puts you to sleep. Only this one is built from capitalism, religion, fear, and distraction. The holy sleepers. Let's talk about religion again. You were told to wake up spiritually, but only within the approved framework. You could awaken, but not beyond. You could question, but only within the faith. You could evolve, but only if the doctrine allowed it. And anything outside that? Blasphemy, heresy. Sin, hell, see the pattern? You are free to think, as long as you agree with us. This isn't faith. It's mental colonization. Manufactured identity equals manufactured reality. When your beliefs are installed, not chosen. When your desires are manufactured, not felt. when your fears are implanted, not understood. What reality do you actually live in? Not yours, theirs. You are not broken, you are hacked. And when enough people are hacked, society becomes a simulation, a looping dream, where everyone is asleep, but no one knows it. What if the system never wanted you to rebel? Not because rebellion is bad, but because it's the first sign of waking up. You don't need to burn books to destroy a culture. You just need to make people forget their power. And that's exactly what they did. Because an awakened human is a system glitch. You don't buy what they sell. You don't fear what they push. You don't worship what they offer. You become a mirror. And in your reflection, they see the lie. Remember who you were before they named you, before the teachers, before the church, before the job, before the bills, before the guilt. You were a creator, a dreamer, a signal of pure frequency. They didn't teach you how to be powerful. They taught you how to doubt yourself. Why? Because self-trust is sovereignty, and sovereignty is dangerous. Consciousness is rebellion. They call it spirituality now. Meditation, breath work, shadow work, energy healing. But these aren't trends, they're acts of rebellion. When you close your eyes and go inward, you're stepping out of the matrix. You're breaking the signal. You're unplugging from fear. You're saying, I don't need your approval. I remember my own rhythm. I reclaim my field. That's why they laugh at it, mock it, call it woo-woo. Because if enough people went within, the outer systems would collapse. Education, unlearning. Real education doesn't start with learning more. It starts with unlearning. Unlearning fear disguised as morality. Unlearning obedience disguised as virtue. Unlearning shame disguised as humility. Unlearning trauma disguised as tradition. Because until you empty the cup, you can't pour in truth. And when you do, you start creating a new mind, new language, new patterns, new reality. God is not in the sky. This one will sting. They told you God was above, distant, watching, judging. But what if that was a projection? What if God is consciousness, the very awareness flowing through you? What if the sacred was never outside, but trapped beneath layers of conditioning inside? Know thyself, and you will know the gods. You don't need a middleman. You don't need permission. You just need to remember. Here's what they never tell you about waking up. It doesn't feel like flying. It feels like falling, like dying. Not your body, not your mind, but your false self. The one built by school, religion, society. And when that version starts dissolving, it hurts, because even a cage feels safe when it's familiar. First comes disillusionment. You start seeing through things. The job that drains you, the relationship that controls you, the belief systems that never felt right, the normal routines that make your soul numb. It all begins to crack, and people call it a crisis. But it's not a breakdown. It's the first spark of truth. You're not falling apart. You're falling out of the illusion. Then comes isolation. You'll feel alone, misunderstood, disconnected from people you once loved. Not because you're broken, but because you're no longer running the same software. You stop needing small talk. You crave silence. Your energy becomes precious. You'd rather be alone than be drained. And guess what? They'll say you've changed, that you're different, that you're not yourself anymore. They're right. You're not. You've left behind the version of you that they could control. Next is the identity void. This is the hardest part. You're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. It's like standing between two worlds. Old masks don't fit. New ones haven't arrived. It's uncomfortable. It's uncertain. It's sacred. Because in this space, you meet your true self. Not the one shaped by doctrine, not the one rewarded for obedience, but the one who's been watching, waiting. Finally, choice. Waking up doesn't mean you escape the system. It means you see it. And once you see it, you get to choose. Choose how you spend your time. Choose what beliefs you hold. Choose what you consume. Choose what you create. Choose who you become. This is real freedom, not the freedom they sold you. Not do what you want capitalism. Soul freedom, conscious creation, sovereign being. They told you you're just one person, too small to matter, too ordinary to change anything. That was the first lie. Because when you wake up, you change the field, not just your life, not just your thoughts, but the collective grid that holds reality in place. Consciousness is contagious. Energy is information. And you are a transmitter. When your vibration shifts, everyone around you feels it, even if they don't understand it. You speak less, but your words hit deeper. You do less, but your presence stirs people. Suddenly, friends start questioning things. Conversations get deeper. Old patterns fall apart. People either rise with you or fall away. You're not forcing, you're resonating. And resonance is more powerful than resistance. You become a mirror. Once you've seen through the illusion, you can't pretend anymore. You walk into rooms and feel the tension people hide. You sense the lies they believe. You hear the words and feel the unspoken behind them. You become a mirror, and mirrors don't tell people what to do. They show them who they really are. That's why the system fears the awakened, not because they shout, but because they reflect. Your energy becomes permission. Most people are waiting for proof, waiting for someone else to go first, to leave the job, to speak the truth, to break the rule. When you do it, you give them permission, not by preaching, but by embodying. You don't need to convince anyone. You just need to become undeniable. And when you do, others start to remember. They don't know why, but something about you shakes their dream. Reprogramming the grid. Here's the cosmic twist. The collective is not separate from you. It's a reflection of you. And when enough people shift their inner code, the outer systems begin to destabilize. This is how revolutions happen. Not by protest, not by violence, but by frequency, disobedience. You stop playing the game, and the game breaks. Not because you fought harder, but because you walked away. This is the true uprising, not rebellion by force, but reclamation by vibration. You've seen the system. You've felt the conditioning. You've remembered the lies. But here's the truth. that changes everything. The lock was never outside you, and the key was never lost. It was always there, buried under repetition, under fear, under approval addiction, under all the ways you were told to shrink to fit. But now, you know, this is the line in the sand. You can go back, scroll, numb, fit in, pretend you never heard this. Tell yourself it's just another video. Or you can stay in this frequency. Follow the signal. See how deep the remembering goes. Because once you see the grid, you can't unsee it. Once you feel your real self returning, you won't want to play small again. And once you remember you're not here to obey, you start to create. You are the glitch. You're not here to be perfect. You're not here to be right. You're here to disrupt the loop by being you, fully, loudly, unapologetically, even when it's weird, even when it's lonely, even when no one claps. Because the system isn't scared of noise. It's scared of silence, of stillness, of one person who's no longer programmable. And now that you've remembered, you can't be coded again. You're the bug in the matrix, the forgotten god, the ancient flame reborn. What part of yourself do you feel ready to reclaim, now that the system can no longer define you? Drop it in the comments. Not for me, for you, to make it real, to bring it online.